Utah, give me 2.
Welcome, everybody. We are your prospects crew with the Palazzo podcast. My name is Ben, and I am at Big Gentle Ben. I'm with my man, Robbie Baseball. You can check him out on the Twitter X Elon Musk affair. At
Well, you know what?
Robbie Baseball 1.
Let's not do the X for me. I prefer you to find me on Instagram at Rob_DABILDA, Rob Dabilda, because I at least look there. On X, I really don't anymore, unless it's like something like this where I can be interactive and live streaming stuff, or I'm watching someone else who's doing the work live streaming. Because I just don't spend my time there anymore. But you can find me on Instagram, where I look at TikTok videos, but I don't have TikTok because I'm not cool like that. Anyway, Ben, how are you tonight?
I'm doing well. We've gotten over 4 inches of rain here in the last 48 hours.
Jeez, I gave that to my wife last night. Oh, sorry, you said rain.
But cool. It is.
Oh, wrong one.
I'm like, well then, silver bullet, huh?
Blanks. I shoot blanks. We've had a lot of rain here too in southwestern Ontario. Thunderstorms on and off all weekend ahead of us, and it's not ideal, but at the moment we are in a nice evening point. So very much like the background we've got on our live stream right now. It's beautiful out. Got to spend a little time in our pool tonight with the boy. So yeah, but we are busy tonight. We're going through, this is our mock draft 1.0. Ben and I were just discussing before we went live here that we will look to do a second one potentially, where we will have implications of Ben drafts, I draft, and so on. I've also been working on an ADP based on other people's ranking / their mock draft results, so that we'll be able to develop that to give people an idea of what you can expect as far as in this range, because as we know, the MLB draft is always crazy. There are a few teams that kind of muck up the landing spots for others, ones that save money. We'll get into all that tonight, but first we're going to hit off with some news following up from our last podcast discussing potential promotion of Ben Rice. He was actually called up while we were talking. So again, another front office team listening to us with the Prospects Power Hour.
It'd be nice if they just chip in a little cash toward our work, but
I mean, we need a QR code on the screen where people instantly donates $10 or something. But Ben Rice's contribution to the Yankees so far, he's got an RBI, 2 walks, and is 2 for 8 at the dish. He's also about to go up tonight. He's next up right now. Oh, he is up right now. Okay, so we'll find out what he does here. The reason he's up is, of course, Anthony Rizzo injured and to the 60-day IL, creating what could be a big chunk of time for Ben Rice to completely lose prospect status within those 60 days. The Yankee fallout was also a promotion for 18% rostered on Fantrax, Agustin Ramirez, who was ready based on the stat line of 290, 372, 570 with 16 home runs and 13 stolen bases over 58 games with Somerset at AA. So ready to go up. It's a good move. Prospect people like this move. Agustin Ramirez is one of those real deal Holyfields for some. And I'm more of a sit and wait because it's a catcher. So
this is a catcher.
let's just keep ourselves in check on those. But anyway, Cody Poteet to the IL. Unfortunate news, and another pitcher. Those arms be fallen. Yankees prospect Jason Dominguez out up to 8 weeks.
That's what makes me sad.
Yeah, I think it was Mike VA who asked us before if he thought that Dominguez promotion was soon coming, and we kind of downplayed it. Obviously, the injury throws that timeline out the window.
But he looks so good.
And it does look like he's somewhat ready. But again, we were discussing the fact that you don't want to bring him up and put him on the bench. You want to bring him up and play him.
And Rice struck out.
Oh, there we go. So 2 for 9. I never thought he was going to make it. Mind you, he's 1 hit in his next at bat away from being a potential Hall of Famer at 3 for 10. So
Matthew Z says, "Give me 2." Matt, we did that at the beginning of the show, but if you're really hard up for it, I mean, we can certainly throw you another one if you'd like. Because
Utah.
I mean, there
Give
it
me
is.
2.
Feel the rhythm, feel the rhyme.
There we go.
Kyle Freeland will be back at this time on Sunday. He's coming off the IL, and he's had a horrible start to the year, but he has consistently been a very good Rockies pitcher in Colorado, away from Colorado. I'm hoping for good things rest of season for him. This Sunday start will muck up the option for people to go out there and pick him up in redraft leagues for a 2-start week next week. So you've got to actually watch him get 3 solid starts before the possibility of him having a 2-start week comes up. But there was this old thing of never start a guy when he comes back from the IL. With a Rocky pitcher, you're really taking a chance no matter what. And I think they're in Washington this weekend. So it's not an ideal time for him to start, but I also don't know that he'll throw 85 pitches. So this might be an okay time to let Kyle Freeland hang out on your bench, unless it's a points league and you're going up against Govier in the Brady Singer Bowl and you're down by about 60 points. So you're going to need him. Max Scherzer will also be back tomorrow. I don't have that on the notes, Ben, but Scherzer coming back is huge for a lot of us who really want dominance down the stretch here with Texas. Unfortunately, former Rule 5 pick who was returned and often injured and then was a bullpen guy last year and now is a magical starter, Los Angeles Angels, Jose Soriano, is to the IL. We don't yet know what will come in the rotation next. We know Jose Suarez was DFA'd, and I don't think he was picked up anywhere, so I think he's still in the organization, but he'll be off the 40-man. So unless there's a 60-day IL, I can't imagine they want to bring him up. But we'll be looking for that, and we're excited to see who that is. Is that going to be a new person for us to be excited about?
We can talk more on Monday because I've been looking at guys there a little bit. So that might be something interesting.
I've heard rumblings there could be some weird Angels things going on. Yeah. There's also a prospect who could be promoted that would be amazing and way too soon, but we'll see. Also, do you guys subscribe to our YouTube? Because Ben, we're at 802 last I checked, which does limit Truck Talk up here. Limits Truck Talk a little bit, but I also think it's because of Truck Talk and only that we got there because people just didn't want to hear it.
Look at that.
803.
Right there.
One more since we left. We thank each and every one of you for it. We are on the march to monetize this bad boy. Govier wants some new tires. He said something about a car wash today. I think he wants to get the wash and wax next time. So let's get up to 1,000. Yeah. Let's exceed expectations.
That's just like we want
all of our just like we want all of our fantasy pitchers to get. Fantasy pitcher who won't be helping us, real pitcher, Kyle Bradish from Baltimore, out for Tommy John. See you in 2026, sunshine. Walker Buehler to the IL. I believe this was hip related, but also a Dodger move of let's get you out of the way. Let's give you 15 days to, reset, chill out, and then we're going to work you back in.
The Braves pitch like 6 different prospects. The Dodgers throw guys on the IL. That's how they give extra days to their guys that they're worried about innings. So
yeah, there we go. One thing that the Blue Jay fans no longer have to worry about is Dan Vogelbach stealing at bats from anybody with actual
stealing a base because he never has.
Yes. So. He's out. He was released. Toronto did call up Orvelis Martinez, and against Cleveland this weekend, I don't expect to see him start more than once. Certainly come. Hey, Mike. Certainly come.
Mike VA.
In.
Hello.
Certainly come in and get some at bats when it's probably not opportune for him, but when the Jays might be like, hey, you can hit a home run, right? And we'll see what he can do. They've also this week looked for a little bit of pitching depth by signing James Caprillion, who was an A's prospect who had a little bit of success when he was healthy, and he's on an MILB deal, so he'll be in Buffalo. We also have Alex Lang of Detroit, lat surgery. That's unfortunate. Cleveland has demoted Kyle Manzardo. Sometimes this happens, guys. It's a rough transition to the show, and guys are going up and down. The Cubs have DFA'd Yan Gomes and signed Nito. Backup catcher for backup catcher, sure. And then Ben, you had a comment or not a comment, but you had the final note of news you wanted everyone to take a moment to consider here.
Yeah, if you haven't had a chance to take a look at highlights and things from the Rickwood game last night. It was absolutely amazing. But one of the very coolest things. Hey, I'll mention one other thing. They did an entire inning based on as if it was 1954, the broadcast. So it was all like yellowed, and even from the camera angles that they would use in 1954, which was really cool. It was really kind of fun. And guys' stats were home runs and RBIs. And I mean, like, they used stats that you would use back then, not the whole like slash line and everything else. It was really kind of a cool situation. But everyone should go find the Reggie Jackson interview. He gave Alex Rodriguez teed him up for one question, and he gave a really great answer that I think everyone should hear. And especially in this country, and I'll not make it completely political, but there's a lot of political ramifications to what he said. So folks should just listen to that. He had some really good insight.
Excellent. Well, we'll leave it at that. You guys can find it, use the interwebs, and do what you got to do. So we're going to now transition into the main topic for tonight, and that is going to be Ben's MLB mock draft. So this is a take on where he sees things going. Right, meow. And as we discussed earlier, we may do a second mock draft where he and I will exchange picks back and forth. So what we've got here is essentially a couple questions I've got. Are we going to be dealing with tiers tonight, Ben? And we've heard there's sort of a 4-ish core that should be taken. I've already seen, by doing some ADP mock draft stuff, one guy that you've got ranked further back than the others I've looked at, who could be going 1-1 to the very Guardians hat that I'm wearing right now.
Yep.
So without further ado, let's start at the top, because that's what everybody likes to know. Who do you think the Guardians are going to be drafting? 1-1.
Cleveland, I mean, no matter who you pick, if they could save about $1 million and still give the highest bonus in the history of draft. So they're not going to be using all of this. Those that think that they're going to be selecting a guy who's ranked number 20 in order to cut an extra $1 million, I don't think so. I don't think they're going quite that crazy. To me, you have the two studs at the top of this draft, which are Oregon State's second baseman Travis Bazzana, and you have Georgia third baseman outfielder Charlie Condon. And those two are the cream of the crop to me at the top of the draft board. And I think it would be wise for the Guardians, who need offense. That's the thing that's actually available at the top of this draft, to grab themselves one of those two players, because that just makes way too much sense. They're both exceptional fits. But I did consider a couple other guys. I considered Condon and JJ Weatherholt, who we're going to get into discussing as we go down here a little further. Was the top ranked guy coming into the year, was injured for a lot of the year, has been injured a couple of different times. So there's some concern about his injury, but I think he might be a guy that maybe if they think if he doesn't go 1-1, he goes 6th or later, or, between 6 and 10, they might cut a deal to say, hey, if you give me number 4 money, I'll gladly sign with you at number 1, which is, that would save Cleveland a ton of money down the draft board. But then you're risking who's going to be there. That's always the risk. The other guy is Braden Montgomery. I thought this was a lot bigger possibility before he got hurt during the College World Series playoffs. But he's all of that as far as talent goes. I compared him, and those who listen to us talk with Carlos Collazo of Baseball America, I compared Montgomery to Andrew Benintendi coming out of college. And I think that's not a bad comparison. It's a really high floor guy, but maybe not the ceiling you'd prefer. So, but first pick overall, Travis Bazzana. You got a guy he's going to play a very good second base. He's going to beat the crap out of the ball. but he has a really good eye. This is, if you're going for what's the difference between him and Condon, Bazana's the guy who has a really high floor as far as his batting average and should be able to get on base well, but has also then this year hit 30 home runs. So that suddenly was kind of a wow, okay. And then with Condon, you're talking about a guy who he set the new record for home runs in a year. Now, technically, two guys did that this year, and we'll get into the other one soon. But Condon, just a ton of power. I'm a little concerned there's going to be some swing and miss as he gets to the pro level, but that's, you're going to get a guy who might be a 40 home run guy. You're kind of okay with a little swing and miss involved too. So
now we can wait until he comes up on your draft board, but Matthew Z, not Z, Z is saying they're going to take Nick Kurtz here. So let's save it. Yeah. Let's save it for when you've got him here, just because I just wanted to put that point up there for Nick.
I think he might have been talking about Braden Gregory here was questioning who the Nats were going to take. And I was wondering if perhaps Matthew Z might be responding to that, which we'll see.
We'll update us, Matthew.
We'll discuss the Nationals when we get there, because I think they would love to have either one of those guys still on the board. And I'm not sure, as far as Connor Griffin was the one that Braden mentioned, and Nick Kurtz was the one that Matthew Z mentioned. And I think they would love to have either one of those guys on the board, and we'll see if either one of them are.
Yeah, so initially I had thought Weatherholt would be a 1-1. There are definitely concerns with him being able to stick at a shortstop position. And the idea of a second baseman going first overall seems wrong. However,
it does.
It's the first guy is the first guy for a reason. Their talent can exceed what you want. And if you're Cleveland, and you're not that you would draft based on position, you would have a lot of factors going into it. They have been successful with pitchers over the years. Last year they drafted, I think it was a high school catcher who is now, safely moving up those rankings, and he was a preseason hype guy. So they kind of can do what they want at this point in time. And the fact that they landed in 1-1 without being the worst team in baseball is a reward, and it's going to work very well based on how they do the draft. So with Bazana off your board, who do the Reds select second?
I have them going for Charlie Condon here. And I just because it makes the most sense. That said, this is where the Reds could do a lot of fun things. The Reds, I have heard a lot of talk about they might be focused in on one of Condon or Bazana. And if the one is off, then they're going to, the guy that they want is potentially off. They might just change their focus and go for the top college arm that they like. And between Chase Burns and Hagen Smith. Now, I personally think that'd be nuts. The other thing I've heard is that they might have a really high opinion of a high school guy. And I will tell you, the last time that I heard this kind of talk about the Reds coming in a spot where it seemed like it made a lot of sense to pick a college guy is the year that they went after Hunter Green. And all of that was true. They really were very hard on Hunter Green, and they ended up taking him. There's really two guys at the top of the high school board, Connor Griffin and, oh gosh, why am I blanking on his first name? B. Rainier. Bryce, there we go. I was like, I know it's a B, God Lord. But those two guys, and we'll get into talking about them more when they are on the board. But depending on the deal that they're willing to take, if the Reds might say that's a much better choice for us where we are in our system right now, yada, 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 and just go after that guy rather than the college bat.
Okay. So, I mean, it makes sense for the Reds to do something with a college player of some sort based on the window they've got now, unless they think they can pull a Cardinals and have a decade plus of consistent success with young players developing through. But last year with Rhett Lauder getting taken 7th, for them, it does make sense on either end for an impact bat or to take a pitcher. in that position, in my opinion here, because
Mm-hmm.
you look at what they want to do within the window, and we are seeing the trend of players drafted having less time in the minors than ever before they start to make their debuts. And if you're going to take that road, you want to take a mature college arm or bat that you
Absolutely.
think is going to be able to have that high floor. Of course, you want the ceiling, but you want to make sure they can come up and hold their own. And one guy I have absolutely been impressed with this year after he got slammed for an entire season has been Zach Neto with the Angels.
Mm-hmm.
He started slow this year as well. Everybody kind of forgot about him. Now he's got a really solid looking line. I think last I looked, he had a 254 average and an OPS a few ticks above 700. And that's all you can really ask for from a guy who wasn't able to be developed at the minors from the time he was drafted, because they brought him up into the show, and he's been around a team that's crumbled. You know, he is the phoenix of the Angels, and he needs to rise up and bring his buddy Noel Shanwell with him, and whoever they may pick, but we'll get to them soon. So before we get to the next pick, I gotta, because the next pick, it's
Coors. Absolutely.
So the Rockies are going to upset several people, I do believe, with their pick. Ben, who do you think they're going to take?
I have them right now on Hagen Smith, the left-handed pitcher from the University of Arkansas. I've seen all over the place that the Rockies are basically deciding between Smith and Chase Burns, who's Wake Forest right-hander.
It's an arm either way.
Yeah. And my only thing I could see upsetting that potentially is if Condon or Bazana slip past one or two, because either one of those bats and cores would be a really nice fit, and I think that they would jump on that opportunity. But I put other names down here on here. I really don't think they're truly in play. I think it's one of those top two arms, or if Bazana or Condon drop, because everyone's talking arms, which is the opposite for the next pick.
Yeah. So from the Rockies with an arm, which again could give them within two drafts, they could have Sullivan, Dollander, and one of Smith or Burns that could be part of that 2026, safe to say, I guess 2026 rotation with those three guys, which would be potentially great. I mean, you got to be able to pitch in Coors. That's what makes it so tough. But that could be a real turnaround for that organization, who has a history of drafting power type hitters who don't succeed. So maybe they're going to try their hand at pitchers who fail. Let's find out. But at number 4 here, we've got the Athletics on the board. They won't be Oakland next year, but they are going to have a pick. So who do you think they're taking it for?
So everyone is saying, and see, this is where I thought, with their system, with everything that's going on and who they have in place as far as development, all that sort of stuff, I thought it would make sense for them to pursue one of the top two pitchers on the board. But everyone I listen to, everyone I talk to says, yeah, they're 100% getting a college hitter here. And so to me, the guy that would make a lot of sense right here with how the board has gone so far is Jack Caglione from Florida, University of Florida. Just set an all-time record there. He actually he would have also beat the all-time record for home runs in a season. He had 35 this year. But he had 75 career home runs in college. And we're talking about a guy who was popping, they said one of his home runs traveled 500 feet. There's some debate on this. But he also is a guy who consistently pops 115 exit velocities. This is a guy who just beats the ever-loving snot out of the ball. And frankly, if they're going to a bandbox AAA ballpark next year, he could really have some fun. If they move him up quick, he could really set the world on fire. But he also has a little bit of a fallback in that he's a legit left-handed pitching prospect. I think he might be if he were just a pitching prospect, we wouldn't be talking about him until late in the first round into the second round, and probably with a lot of reliever risk. But this is a guy who can reach triple digits on the mound too. So, I mean, there's something there beyond just the bat.
Right. So he's not the same as a Bryce Eldridge at the high school level. This is the college version, much more mature bat for Keglone. And I mean, it does make sense. You do have the potential of Tommy Soderstrom as a first baseman, but you can't draft based on the MLB team need.
No.
Today, you need to get the best talent in. And yeah, Keglone certainly would fit that mold. Moving on to the White Sox, who, I mean, they've made some interesting moves. You know, they've acquired talent. They haven't been consistently successful in drafting it, but Noah Schultz is in the system. And that was 2 years ago he was drafted.
Yeah.
Colson Montgomery last year. There are players in that White Sox system, and they're picking fifth here, Ben. Who do you see putting on the White Sox uni on draft day?
And I will say this one is the first one where I think there's about 3 or 4 options that are legit. They have a really good pitching farm system right now. I mean, folks underrate that AA rotation in Birmingham is probably one of the better minor league rotations that there is. You know, it's got Schultz, you've got Iriarte. It had Thorpe. They don't have Thorpe there anymore, but I mean, that's a really good. They got Jake Eater for those who like old school prospects. I don't think he's that player anymore, but that's, you know, Chad will get mad at me for that later. But Chase Burns is who I have them taking, just because, in my opinion, that's the best fit for system, for everything on the board right here. But I could see them going after Weatherholt. We've talked a little on him over Braden Montgomery. If Hagen Smith was on the board still, I could see them doing that. The other end, this is a really good spot. You could possibly see one of those top 2 high school guys go off the board.
Yeah. So after 5 picks, we've seen your 5 guys. This is who in the ADP that includes your list. This is who is ranked 1 through 5. And it's a tie for the 5th just because it's only 3 so far. Bazan is the consensus 1. Condon is the consensus 2. In one mock, he does go 1. He does not go 1. He's in second in all of them. JJ Weatherholt is the 3rd, and he goes first in one of the mocks. 4th is Keglione, and 5th, which is a tie, is Braden Montgomery and Chase Burns. So as I continue to add to these, we should be able to narrow this. And again, this is not so much for the top 10 even. This is to get an idea of what can pocket in realistically in the top 30-ish, 35 picks based on scouting reports, people's opinions, and of course, with the combine and all that other information that starts to flow, exactly where teams might be going with it. A team that consistently weirds us out, I think is safe to say, since their big college draft days, back with the Singer, Bubich, Lynch, Asa Lacy days, Kansas City Royals. We just consistently don't know what they're doing, but the MLB team now seems to be headed in the right direction, thankfully. They drafted, what was it last year? They did like high school catcher, high school pitcher. Is that what they did last year?
Yeah, it was Blake Mitchell, and I can't remember who the pitcher was, but that was. And then the year before was when they went Frank Mazzucato, whatever. And that just kind of blew everyone away.
Yeah, that was the one where people were genuinely confused as to what they were up to.
Yeah. And it does give you a little bit of a curiosity as to what they might be pulling, but I think you've got a guy who would be a legit option at number 1, if not for injury, that just fell in your lap at number 6. The Royals would be really dumb not to take Braden Montgomery, in my opinion. And I think there's potentially some work they can do as far as, you know, is this a guy that they can maybe talk to and say, hey, you're injured a little bit right now. Maybe we give you 90% of what you were expecting and you're happy to come here. I could absolutely see them potentially going after a high floor type of college guy. I mean, Montgomery is too, but someone like Weatherholt, we've talked about. Nick Kurtz was mentioned. He's a, first baseman. So he's, there's kind of some guys that they'd have to move around to get him a spot to even play. But this is a spot, like, anyone's in play. And the guy who I've actually heard some discussion on, and then of course he goes and has a heck of a College World Series playoffs, is Vance Honeycutt. And boy, that would really, I'd love to see some faces of the analysts during the draft if they call out Vance Honeycutt's name at number 6 overall, because talent-wise, there may not be a more talented guy in the entire draft, but he also swings and misses a lot. You're not sure what the contact tool might be. You're kind of looking at a top-end Mike Cameron, and which is a really good player. That's an elite player, but that's his top end. The defense is going to carry him in center field, but if he's hitting 200 consistently and striking out 40% of the time, I don't care how good the defense is, he's not going to be a major league player. So,
and on Honeycutt, Ben, one of my scouting notes that I've got on him is he's taking strikes at a shocking rate, like missing in zone pitches, which is certainly not something that you want to be banking on with a low floor. That's not a floor, that's stuck at AA guy. But yeah, we'll see. Honeycutt's not the guy in this one here. The Royals are taking Montgomery at 6th, according to you. 7th, we have the Cardinals, who have a rich history of MLB players coming from their system, and we're shaking our heads saying, wait, this guy, who is this guy? Who is it that you think the Cardinals are going to take?
We've seen with the Cardinals, they're studs. They're, just 2 years ago, we were talking about the Cardinals potentially having 2 of the top 3 or 4 MVP candidates in Goldschmidt and Arenado. And now neither one of them, is really.
The page is turning.
Yes, let's just put it. They're both in their late 30s at this point. They're beyond 35. They're both kind of in that spot where you need to think about what's going forward, what you got going forward. And their system just is bereft of a guy that's really going to step in as that kind of an impact player on offense. We all hoped Jordan Walker would be that guy, but he has struggled in the major leagues so far. And there was some things to worry about with his development as it was, but man, it makes a lot of sense to me that Nick Kurtz comes off the board here. He's the first baseman from Wake Forest. If he would not have been hurt to start the year, I think this is a guy who was another one who was a legit 1-1 overall candidate. But then you run into the risk. You talked about second baseman at 1-1 overall. The history of a first baseman at 1-1 just has not been so good. Let's just put it that way. Right, Detroit Tigers? But anyway,
wow, good thing Govier's not on with us tonight.
Yeah, he might have a
tears button.
I was say that might get me edited off of this program, but while I still have the mic, no, I think the Cardinals are going to be a team that sits back and they look for who is the guy that just fell into our lap. If Braden Montgomery is that guy, they're going to love that. If it's, if they're looking, they're going to have their 3 or 4 guys that they just love that could potentially fall to them in that spot. And, we've watched them do it with multiple guys in the past where they've come out and you're like, how the hell did the Cardinals get that guy at number 18? Well, now they're sitting at number 7 in a draft where a lot of people say there's 8 top talents. They're just going to kind of sit back and go, okay, here's our board. And if number 3 on our board is there at number 7, woohoo. And so that might be a pitcher. That might be Weatherholt. That might be, in this case, Kurtz is the guy that I got that I thought made a lot of sense for a Cardinal team.
All right. And next up, we get to what has become a tradition that some of us are okay with, but a lot of people just hate. And that's the Los Angeles Angels picking a player that shortly after makes their MLB debut. We've seen it with Neto. We also had, going back a few more years, oh my goodness, who's the pitcher that they brought up?
Bachman. Was it?
Yes, Bachman.
Sam Bach.
Yes.
Then Joyce got brought up really fast. Yeah.
Prior to that, I'm thinking of it's not Griffin Canning, but they just sent back down. Oh my goodness. See, this is the problem with Angels players that
Oh,
don't
Reed
succeed. There's so
Detmers.
many. Thank you, Detmers. There's so many that it's
Yeah.
hard to pick just one.
Yeah.
But underdeveloped. And I was listening to a couple of intelligent people have a conversation about the fact that you can forever blame the Angels for not allowing him to fully develop before it was time for him to get MLB innings.
Yep.
And that will forever haunt, these guys that we're talking about it, not on the Palazzo channel. So you don't need to know where it was. Don't worry about it. All right. Just listen to us and we'll tell you what other people say too.
There we go.
But anyway, who do you think the Angels are going to make their next future MLBer?
So this one's a little bit tough just because I think there's some good floor sort of guys, but I don't know if there's that guy that you look at and you're like, he's where he's going to be in 5 years. He's already there. Nolan Chanwell last year, you looked at him, you're like, maybe that exit velocity turns into more over the fence power, but really he is what he is. He's going to be a lot of doubles. He's going to be a lot of contact. He's going to take a lot of walks. Lo and behold, that's really what he is as a major leaguer. Fantasy owners may not like it because that's a first baseman that's succeeding with doubles, not home runs, but he is what he is. And I just don't know that there's that guy who doesn't have, or who has everything mostly there. But if there is, that's still on the board here as we're picking, it'd be JJ Weatherholt. And once again, if we're going back to before the season started, this is a guy who potentially was a 1-1 overall candidate. Really excellent contact skills, a gap power guy. I don't know that you're going to see him hit 30 home runs, maybe not even 20, but he's going to be a guy who should be double-digit home runs and quite a few doubles and probably some triples. He's not a zero for speed. But the thing that I was impressed by this year was he was a second baseman coming in, and they moved him to short to kind of showcase whether or not he could do it. And he's not excellent there, but I don't think he would hurt you. And I think if you combine him and Neto up the middle, that's a very stable, consistent pairing. They're not going to be flashy. They're not going to throw out Gold Glove type performances, but they're also not going to hurt you often. They're going to make the plays that need to be made, regardless of which one is on which side of second base. And so I think that would be a really neat combo for Angels fans, especially if they could get that Weatherholt up and then have Trout join. You could have the makings of a lineup that actually gets to Trout with some people on base, which Lord knows that man has not had anybody on base or behind him to protect him in a long time. So,
come on. He had Ohtani.
He had Ohtani. Yes.
He had Ohtani in front of him or behind him or wherever they put him. But again, yes, it was a two-man attack for the longest time.
Poor Britton's bringing up, good to Robbie Baseball for talking Angels prospects after the pain of all-time favorite Jose Suarez.
Thanks, Lip Chap. The problem with talking about a team that's hurt you, that has hurt you over and over again, you find yourself consistently going back to the well to try to draw even. It's like the casino. They take your $20 and you're like, you know what? I do have $20 more in my pocket.
Yeah.
The Angels, I look and I think, is there another guy there? Is there somebody else? And Brendan, to your point, we know they've got a pitcher on the IL in Soriano. We're going to see who that guy is that comes up, and maybe it'll be somebody exciting that I can be disappointed by next week. We'll see. But as far as the Angels go, if they make the pick there with Weatherholt, then life is grand. So at 9, that puts the Pirates in an excellent position to add to their depth, or as some people have said, maybe look to replace some of the guys that are currently up who may or may not be worth it. Ben, who do you think the Pirates would like to see there for them at 9?
Well, who would they like to see? I think they would,
based on your draft. Yeah. Based on your draft, who do you think is the top guy?
I think they would love to see somebody fall to them that they believe could give them some impact offense down the road. They are a system that's loaded with pitching. That said, I think if Burns or Smith somehow fell to this spot, it would be very intriguing for them. to have one of those two boys to pick from. But I think they would love to see Nick Kurtz. They'd love to see JJ Weatherholt. Neither one of them are available here. Then you're talking about high school guys that, yeah, there's a lot of upside, but there's also a lot of risk. And like I said, they want an impact bat. They're not 100% sure what that bat might be with the top high school guys. So at this point, I have them taking James Tibbs, who is a first baseman and outfielder from Florida State. Yeah, the third. Mm-hmm. But he's a guy that I consistently see ending up in the top 10 lately. And about the 15th to 20th ranked guy on most top lists, but yet he continually is getting a lot of play in this area, in the 6 through 10 range of the draft. And those who watch the College World Series, watch Florida State, Tibbs is he's a very consistent hitter. I don't know where the defensive home is going to be, but a very, very consistent hitter.
On the ADP that I've put together, Ben, you and one other person, or both, have him going 9. The third location has him at 29. So someone thinks much less, and we'll have to see, is that the outlier as I build some more lists onto this, or is this one person just kind of missing on it? And again, it depends on how these guys rank and at what point they decide an organization will make a certain type of move, right? We all think the Angels want a guy who will come up quickly, but I've already seen, just by doing this with mock drafts, one person said they're going to buck their trend with a high schooler. I don't think that's true, but that's what they wrote, that's what they published, that's what I read, and that's why these kind of conversations are good to have, because you can get a consensus. And again, even when they make the pick, that doesn't yet cement them in fantasy relevance. They've got to sign after that. And sometimes with high schoolers, there are issues with them signing, no matter how high they're taken. I shouldn't say just high schoolers. We've seen college players. We've seen first overall guys not sign, which brings us to the Nationals, who have had so many first overall picks. But this year, they'll be picking 10th to round out our top 10, Ben. Who are the Nats bringing to the East?
And our man, Braden Gregory, came at us here. Gosh, we're almost a half an hour since, about a half an hour since he asked us who the Nats were going to take and why it should be Connor Griffin. Well, I like Connor Griffin, but I really think that the guy that they're going to end up taking is Bryce Renier. He's California high school shortstop. I'm consistently hearing that he is moved to the top of high school boards for folks, that he is the guy that they could see developing more quickly and could potentially need less time in the minor leagues and things like that, which is a really tough thing to say about a high school kid. But compared to Griffin, that's the one separator. The one thing I'll note here is that the Nationals have kind of been putting out a lot of feelers on high school pitching, which could be very, very interesting. And they've been linked a lot. They were scouting Trey Savage before he came out and basically was told that he wasn't going to be able to physically pitch, and then pitched a gem in the regional competition in the College World Series rounds. Really getting a lot of good eyes on him. I think they would love to pull that trigger, but with both high schoolers staring them right in the face, I think they're going to likely here go with the top high schooler available.
All right. So Ben's top 10, just to recap for everybody here. At 1, we've got Travis Bazzano to the Guardians. The Reds are getting Charlie Condon. The Rockies are going to ruin Hagen Smith's career. The Athletics are going to get Jack Caglione. White Sox are going to add to their bevy of pitching with Chase Burns. The Royals getting Braden Montgomery out of Texas, A and M. The Cardinals with Nick Kurtz to replace that first baseman. The Angels taking JJ Weatherholt to shore up that middle. The Pirates getting James Tibbs III. and the Nats, of course, with the first high schooler off the board in Bryce Rainier. So one high school in the top 10, 9 college. And I know from doing the work years and years ago that college players do have a higher success rate, albeit still under 40%, in exceeding rookie eligibility in previous drafts. I also covered that on one of our other podcasts this season, and which that will transition us now. I know the show takes breaks sometimes for commercials and things like that. So, if this is the time, Govier, let's take a break. Ba-da-ba. And welcome back from the break. Now we're going to get to the Tigers. We made you wait, everybody. Pick number 11. Detroit's on the board. Ben, who are they taking? Who's joining the Tigers organization?
And this is a fun pick because I think they have a system that has depth in a lot of places. So they aren't in a need to really reach for any type of player. I've seen them linked to a lot of high school players, but I also know that they really liked Trey Savage before, and seeing what he did in the regional could be that kick over that has them taking a guy like Savage as I think if you were to compare him to what Ty Madden was supposed to be in college, now they got Ty Madden at a discount. Ty Madden is looking like a fairly serviceable mid-rotation starter. And I think that's exactly what you're looking at here with Savage. Is this guy may not be an ace, but this is a guy that should move up fairly quick, and he should move up and be just kind of an anchor in the middle of your rotation for quite a while.
Okay. And I mean, the Tigers have been doing their thing with the pitchers. So adding to that is a good thing for the player getting drafted there. Good for anybody in dynasty leagues looking to pick up what could potentially be a valuable asset, whether that's a trade asset or somebody who you could actually hold all the way through their development and get some good MLB time. It's hard to knock them despite the Manning and despite the Mize hate that has occurred. There's still a lot of good things that have been going on in Detroit. So moving to 11, could not care less about the organization. Rich history or not, the Red Sox on the board here. They seem to be able to get hyped prospects, whether they deserve it or not. They're still not yet at the Yankees level of hype with whatever they pick. But who are the Red Sox going to bring home, and who's the fantasy community going to say this guy is the next best thing?
I think this is where they're going to be jumping all over themselves if one of the two top high school hitters are still on the board. And in this particular draft, Connor Griffin still is. And so that's going to be an easy choice for them. I think I've had the Red Sox as kind of a team that they're going to look for somebody falling, or else they have somebody they're targeting otherwise. If that's we're going to get, if that's one of the high school pitchers, if that's, Vance Honeycutt, if that's Seaver King, who's a shortstop with Wake Forest, really a ton of raw talent there. However, the guy that they really like that's kind of in this position for a lot of people's boards, the Red Sox are going to push that guy into their spot. Unless, like I said, I think that one of those two high school guys falling into their lap is just going to be too much for them to resist.
Fair. Yeah. All right. Don't want to talk anymore about the Red Sox. So let's move to a place that I have been dipping my dynasty dink into quite a bit in the first round with their picks. San Francisco Giants. They make picks that make me think they're safe for me to take, in the sense that I like the upside, I like the opportunity, and there's a spot within the organization for these guys to go. And then we've had, Bednar 2 years ago, I think it was, or 3 years ago, who with injury and some struggle seems to now finally be getting his first legitimate chance moving forward. Bryce Eldridge last year was my kind of potential Aaron Judge, Shohei Ohtani type. I mean, I just picked two amazing players, but those are the fun fantasy comps I'm allowed to give because you're listening. So who are they going to get this year that I'm going to be super excited with, Ben, at 13?
So they are being tied to one particular player quite a bit, and that's Cam Caminiti. Not the son of Ken Caminiti, but a nephew, I believe.
Yeah, I think he is. It said something like cousin. What? There's a familiar relation either way.
Yes,
yeah.
But left-handed pitcher, and arguably the very top left-handed pitcher available. Maybe you could argue he's even the top overall high school pitcher available in what is a very deep class, but without really that elite top end. Caminiti is a guy that should be in the 2025 draft. He reclassified into this draft. So he's one of the younger pitchers in this draft, which is always a thing that you enjoy and that teams enjoy. And then you add in his profile to me really reminds me of Kyle Harrison as a high schooler, and the Giants were all over that profile. And there's just a lot of things that make sense here with Caminiti and the Giants being a fit.
The comp that I've got for him is Patrick Corbin before the money. So high velo with 3 pitches, and he's a legit high school starter. Like not the, if the wheels fall off, he's a reliever. This is not that like worried you could make a bad choice. This is like a legitimate guy. And yeah, what I had read was Patrick Corbin, and then it was like, not today's Corbin, the one from 8 or 9 years ago who was earning the money he's now getting paid. And I'm like, hey, that's a pretty funny thing. But you go back and look and you're like, yeah, like that, I get, yeah, that was the similarity. So I kind of like that. And as a pick here, high school lefty, I'm in love with those 2 ideas. The Giants, I just stated my enjoyment and feel the safe feeling I get them as a developmental organization. So this could be some, dynasty candy that I just have to bite into if that does come to fruition. So the Cubs are typically a team that drafts college-y type guys, and they are one of the ones who brought somebody up, their World Series season. They brought somebody up right away because they wanted to win, and they have continued to do what they feel is best short term as far as getting a guy that is not going to need years and years and years of development.
Yep.
It looks like you are kind of on that similar path with them this year. So who's the 14th man off the board here?
So I will say this year's draft class, which is, something you're going to love to hear, has a whole host of college catchers that will figure into the first round. This is probably as high as I would like to see them go. I mean, personally, I don't know that any of them really deserves to be top 17, 18, but that's, I don't get to make that choice. But this is as high as I can really legitimately see one of them going. But with the Cubs, it's all college bats, and they're not afraid to take that risk. And especially, if there's a high upside as far as the defense is concerned, they're not afraid to take that risk. And so to me, Vance Honeycutt was a really good fit here, which, by the way, Vance Honeycutt and Pete Crow Armstrong potentially in the same outfield would be really, really fun. Just going out and getting stuff. But, Honeycutt here is the guy that I selected. There's a lot of college hitter options that they could look at.
Yeah, and we had discussed Honeycutt with the potential of in-zone strike issues before, but we're not looking at a top 5 pick anymore. We're falling back a little bit where these guys may or may not have a wart that requires some coaching. So at 15, the Mariners are up, and Ben, they've had an excellent run of making players valuable immediately after drafting them, or everyone saying they've had a great draft. So who's the next great Mariner hype player?
I really like, this is a team that very well could go after a high school guy. Or a high school bat. I just don't think that there is a high school bat that really fits into this spot. there's kind of a big gap after Griffin and good Lord, Griffin and Rainier. And then you get into a ways down before you see another bat that really should be figured in hard. I think this is a really good spot for a guy who has completely showed out in this College World Series, and that is Christian Moore of Tennessee. Plays second base, which is a really odd thing for we're at pick 15, and you got 3 guys who are probably ticketed for second base that have come off the board. But Moore's offensive season this year is just incredible. And he already was a high-end hitter, but he went from a doubles hitter that could pop out 15 home runs and had good overall profile as a hitter with patience and whatnot, to a guy who hit 30 home runs this year. I mean, just completely bombed out as far as home runs are concerned. So lots of options here for the Mariners where they could go, but I like the idea of Moore here as kind of a high floor sort of pick for them.
Yeah, and I mean they have yet to officially settle in on an infield, and they've also had a very bad time legitimately filling their infield with drafted players.
Yeah.
They might have highly touted ones, but they've traded pitching away, they've traded infielders away. Maybe if it is more, maybe this is a guy that sticks around and we get to see come all the way up to the show. So that's our 11 through 15. Top 15 guys are now off Ben's board here. Just to remember, the 10th guy was Bryce Rainier with the Nationals. The Tigers taking Trey Savage. The Red Sox taking Connor Griffin, the outfielder. The Giants making a fun pick for me, Cam Nitty, the left-handed high school pitcher. The Cubs with Vance Honeycutt of North Carolina, and then the Mariners taking Christian Moore. So we are off now to the second half of the first round.
Mm-hmm.
There are comp picks, of course. It can't just be simple. There's always more. It's baseball. You can't trade the picks, but you can trade some picks, but you can't trade all the picks. And there's lots of red tape here. But now let's move to the Marlins, who, I mean, a year ago we were excited how they were doing, and a year has now passed. So they need to restock the system and get some fresh blood. So, Ben, where do you see the Marlins going?
I mean, the really weird position here that I've been hearing a little bit more lately, and just it's one of those head slapping things, but that they might be pursuing a high school pitcher, which I just think is silliness, because they're going to be in a really good spot to get a good college bat. I mean, maybe not an elite college bat, but a very good college bat. And the guy I have them going for here is Cam Smith, who's third baseman with Florida State. I like the third base glove. I don't know if he is a third baseman long term. He might have to move across the diamond, but there's enough in the bat that he can do that. And just you got a Florida State guy that's going to Miami to staying in state essentially and I don't know, it's a really, really good fit that I think is almost too good to be true for the Marlins to get a guy with that kind of a bat that they very likely have had plenty of looks at.
Right.
But the other end, I'm seeing, like I said, I mentioned the high school pitcher talk. I haven't seen anyone who's bold enough yet to put a high school pitcher in this spot in a mock, but I've heard that talk a lot more. The other end of things is they're often in different mocks put with a catcher. And there are some good catchers, like I said, in this, but for a team that desperately needs bats to then put in a catcher when there's very good college bats still available makes very little sense. So,
and my note on Smith is stud ? Because so far I haven't seen anything outside of what position, as you mentioned, third or first, where we could legitimately see him. We know it'll be with an MLB team unless he falls flat on his face with professional pitching and a wood bat. But Cam Smith certainly looks like a lock to be a bat first, which again for fantasy is going to raise the stock post draft, other than the fact that Marlins park is not an ideal one unless you have the power that doesn't matter what park you're in. But I mean, for some, talk to Josh Bell how that works out. There are certain parks that can find a way to zap you. So at 17, we are now going to Milwaukee, and this is an interesting pick that you have here.
Yeah, they're all over the place. I think that this would be a really good spot for Honeycutt if he's there. That's the type of player that really seems to fit a Brewers mold. High end. They don't mind the low floor. That's the Brewers don't mind taking a guy who might have some floor issues. And so Seaver King is a very big option here. I've seen a lot of talk of Tommy White, the LSU slugger, potentially working here, but I just think that this is a spot where the Brewers could do something that folks just aren't ready for. And in my mock here, I've got them going after the top right-handed pitcher and arguably the top high school pitcher on the board, William Schmidt out of high school in Louisiana.
Yeah, and that's an aggressive spot for him. But Milwaukee seems to have tried power hitting college player, versatile hitting college player, position first outfielding college player. So why not change it up a little bit? Because you've been successful in developing some pitchers in your system, and some of these highly touted, high drafted guys have not worked out. I mean, if there's ever a team that would 100% trade this pick to get an MLB asset before they've ever made it, it would be Milwaukee right now. They would do that this year. Because it's based on kind of what we're seeing here. There isn't necessarily a natural fit based on how the mock has worked out so far from Milwaukee at 17. The Rays at 18. I talk a lot about how people give the Rays a lot of credit, but they shouldn't. And another case is where they stall guys out or leave guys at spots without promotions for too long, things like that. So Ben, who are they going to screw over next?
This is a spot I see a lot of people talking about, specifically Walker Janik, who's a catcher out of Sam Houston State, but he is not who I put here. But we're talking a guy who's more glove than bat. There's a couple of the opposite direction. But there's some people who have the Rays going for a guy like that in this spot. But I think Seaver King for them is one of those that just fits their mold way too well. The guy has played, I think, 3 or 4 positions at a full-time basis for at least part of a season in college. Played most of this year at shortstop, but I mean, the guy's showed at center field. He showed at second base. He's moved around a little bit, and boy, doesn't that seem to fit what the Rays like out of a player. And the offensive side of the thing is he's not that sure bat, but he's kind of in that, he's not got the upside of Vance Honeycutt, but in that mold where there's a lot of things that could turn out very well here. But you're taking a risk as far as the bat profile goes.
Okay, so that has Tampa Bay written all over it. They're moving to 19 with the Mets. They have a lot of needs. I guess you could say their prospect pitching. They've got a good trio of guys. So they might be looking elsewhere. But Ben, where do you see the Mets going in this mock at 19?
With what's on the board, it just makes way too much sense for them to go after a college hitter. And one of the guys that I've really been impressed by in doing the research for draft season is Carson Benge, Benge, of an outfielder from Oklahoma State. And he's also a guy who has put in significant innings on the mound, more as a relief pitcher, but still, he does have a 4-pitch mix that could potentially work as a starter. He's just been such a good bat that they don't really want to screw up the shoulder. But that's the thing. You put him out in the outfield. This is a guy who's range-wise, he's good, not elite, but you add in that arm and he makes it, that's a really nice thing to have sitting out in right field. And he's got the bat to play right field. He could, he's a power bat. that I think if he focuses on just hitting is going to really take off. And frankly, the Mets could desperately use a guy who's going to give them a power bat, because we don't know what's going to go on with Mr. Pete Alonso in the offseason.
Yeah.
And so there's an option here for them to potentially get a power bat to start moving up in their system.
All right. And rounding out the top 20, the Blue Jays are up, and I knew it was going to happen. I can't officially state that I'm a Blue Jay fan because I just don't like how the organization does things like draft. And this seems like an ideal thing that the Blue Jays would do when I think they should be doing other things. But Ben, who do you have them going with here at 20?
I think that they should be going in a different direction, but everyone keeps saying that they are all over Caleb Lamavita from Cal Berkeley, and if he is still on the board here, that will be the pick. And he's, the guy who he really kind of reminds me a lot of is Danny Jansen, which is just
that's why I got these on. These are the Danny Jansen Brett Cecil glasses.
There we go. But I mean, he's a guy who's probably bad ahead of defense right now, and his best thing coming up as a defender, he's not going to really ever control the run game probably the way you want him to, which if we get into a system where no longer is framing a big deal, that's a detriment for a catcher. And so I worry about his profile, but it sounds like the Blue Jays just really like him, and he's rated as the top catcher in a lot of places. So there you go.
All right. So we've got from 15 up to 20 here, just to recap for all of you fine people out there. The Mariners getting Christian Moore, the Marlins with Cam Smith out of Florida, the Brewers with William Schmidt, high school righty, Tampa Bay and Seaver King out of Wake Forest, the Mets with Carson Benj. We're going with Beng. We'll just spell it because we're cool like that. And then the Blue Jays getting the top-rated catcher, Caleb Lomavita. We'll find out on draft day exactly how to pronounce it. B. Henny saying, want to show love to y'all boys as well. Thanks for all you do. Thank you. This bud's for you, B. Henny. So Ben,
is that what you're drinking tonight, or are we back to the hams?
It's still Yingling.
Okay.
And I'm running low. I am running low. So a trip to what we have in Ontario called the beer store. This is why
we need to get more YouTube followers.
Yes.
So we can get Robbie
there are people who do there are YouTubers who do like a buy me a beer thing. Oh, I would love to get that set up. I did have with Dingers. We had an awesome guy, a listener who lived about an hour or so away, and he said, hey, I would love to drop some beer off to you. And I was like, sure, let's do it. So he came, dropped some beer off to me one day. He's now playing in the to be named later league where Govey and I are competing in the Brady Singer Bowl this week. I haven't looked at the score tonight because I don't know what it's going to be. I don't want to look in that one until Sunday morning to see what I need to do to catch up. But back on track here, Ben. We are into pick 21. So 21 through 30 here, and we are nearly 70 minutes into the show here at 1:08:40. I'm going to call it. Ben, who are the Twins taking?
So the Twins, one would think there's a lot of interest in a college bat here, and they've been profiled with that. I will say this is another spot where you hear a lot about a catcher, which that actually would make some sense in their system. This is a system that's a spot where they don't have a ton of depth. They have a lot of org guys playing catcher in their farm system right now. And so it could make some sense, but they're also starting to get some rumors of them going after one of the top high school shortstops, and this might be one of the spots where that next tier of high schoolers comes off the board. So I decided to go forward with that with a guy who's starting to get a lot of publicity in Theodore Gillen. He's a high school shortstop out of Texas, and I'm not sure that he sticks at short, but this is a guy whose offensive side of things is going to carry him. Really high-end hit tool, plus runner, even has the ability to have some plus power. So this is a really high-end profile. I don't know where they stick it. If it's going to be second base or left field long-term, I'm not a fan of the arm. And that's why I'm wondering where he might work. I don't know that he's a shortstop for the arm in the big leagues, but this is a guy who really has, he had some, well, and part of that is he had a torn labrum, and so he had to have shoulder surgery, and so he very well may have that kind of arm, and he did before he got hurt, but it's not come back at all this year. And I don't want to guarantee that you're going to be looking at a guy who might have a really good arm just because it's still injured and healing, but that could also help him tick up as far as his abilities and where he could stick. If that arm comes back and he can work in, let's say, third base, all of a sudden this is, a lot more valuable guy.
So that's a very interesting point for everybody out there to listen. After the draft, when we find out where Theodore or Theo, I've seen it both ways, wherever he lands, look for video of him working in the instructs, wherever, if they give him any back, it's high school guy, I doubt they will, but look for any video on him, and then look to have anyone from the organization making comments about him before you head into your offseason dynasty draft. Because what Ben just said could be amazing for dynasty value, where he could end up being a third baseman who's got a cannon of an arm, which he once upon a time did have, rather than he might end up at second base because he no longer has the arm, and he could get lost there, because at second base you need to really produce to be fantasy excellence. And if it's going to be a first round pick that you're giving up in your big dynasty leagues, or an early second for a guy like this, you need to know there's going to be a little bit more to it. Ben, this next pick to me, this is my type of guy. Oh my goodness. Yeah. Oh wow. Govier is doing stuff. If you're not looking on the YouTubes right now, you need to be. I see why he wants the picture of the arms crossed. I still haven't done it. I don't know. I've forgotten. I apologize.
Them's are some guns, folks. So, you have come to the gun show.
I hate the landing spot that you've picked for this player.
Yeah.
But I absolutely love the player. So who is it that the Orioles are going to absolutely steal in the draft here at 22?
And this is a guy who I've had, if we were be mentioning every guy I was looking at possibly for players, this is a guy I was looking at as a potential fit as far back as 15. So for him to still be on the board at 22, we're talking about Orangelo. I'm going to butcher the name. Cijntje. Siente?
This is my favorite episode because I don't have to say a single name. I just say, here's the team. Ben, who'd you pick?
Thanks.
So the spelling here, Jurangelo, easy. You got that. Jurrangelo. The last name, Cijntje. And when I looked up the scouting report on this guy, I was like, oh my goodness, I'm impressed. Then I watched a video and I was like, wow, dude. Because he throws from both sides.
Yeah.
He's a switch pitcher, baby. Yes, legitimately a switch pitcher.
This isn't a guy who's a side armor from both sides and is going to make a career out of an 84-mile-an-hour fastball and a sweeping slider from a Pat Venditti type, as we're having mentioned in the comments. It's not that. No. This is a legit. I think he's a reliever from the left side. The slider is definitely the better pitch from the left side, and he just struggles with control a bit. So it's a reliever profile from the left side. But that's what's interesting. He's a natural left-hander, and he started to try throwing right-handed because his dad was right-handed, and so his dad played professionally in the Netherlands. So very interesting, international feel to our draft coverage here tonight. But from the right-hand side, this is a guy who has a legit plus fastball and slider,
97, 98 that works.
Yeah,
86 slider, workable change, and the comp that I've seen, Stroman because he's not a tall guy, and
but he
that
also
bulldog mentality of
kind of comes over the
comes up.
top and really, or not necessarily over the top, but high 3/4, and so that Stroman feel to his pitch, because it is a heavy fastball, and so I mean, geez, it's I think it's going to be fun to see what he ends up doing if he does keep switch pitching, but
Right.
like I said, he's a
Realistically, I
legit
feel
guy.
like like I could see realistically he would just pick right side possibly, like whatever.
Yeah.
But the fact that he's going to the draft and it's exciting that he could do both means that he could lengthen out his if he's failing, he could lengthen out his opportunities within an organization because of that versatility. But he might just choose to continue to develop one way with one team. And like you said, if it's the Orioles, this could be one of those amazing, we think you're at your peak right now, and we're going to move you through quick. Like they talk about pitchers, pitchers have whatever they say, 10,000 bullets. So every time they throw, like there's another bullet gone before like an injury or this or that, save the bullets. This could be the kind of guy where they're like, we've got this guy who can come up and crush your lineup late, in the 2025 season. And he could come in as a relief pitcher a la David Price once upon a time and mow through, your 4, 5, 6, because he'll switch left and right side. And then in 2 years or whatever, he'll just be a regular old starter. Just the idea of that makes me want to waste a first round pick on him, Yeah, I can see that wasted pick, and I'll pick 10 spots ahead of whoever else was thinking of taking him. But anyway, so the Baltimore Orioles with him at 23, the Dodgers come up, and they have been making interesting picks the last couple of years, dating back to 2020 when they had the 5 pitchers that they all took, 5 college pitchers they took. Last year they had high schoolers. Who do you see, Ben, that taken at 23?
So I could see them doing if you want to put a pitcher with some upside, and maybe not worrying too much about the floor. On the college side, we have a couple of those type of guys, just because there are a couple of guys. Ben Brecht is one of them, and that's who I have in this spot. He's a right-hander from Iowa, and might have the best raw stuff in the whole draft, even better than Chase Burns, but really struggled to locate it. And the other end of things, this is a spot where if he's still on the board, I think Schmidt goes off all day long. The top right-handed starter, I think he's their guy, because development-wise, I mean, he's a really good Dodger fit. If William Schmidt is still there. But Brecht is the guy who I ended up selecting. I think we're going to get into him here down in a little bit, but Jonathan Santucci, a left-hander out of Duke, is another one that would fit here very well. Guys that they could work with, that they could mold, that they could develop in their system. So, hey.
Okay. So Ben has been, for anybody who's not watching on the YouTube, just listening on the good old-fashioned podcast, there's an excellent photo of Ben who pops up. We've got producer Govier tonight who pops it up and it says on it, Ben Chase selects. And it's a very attractive photo of Ben. I think it's the same one he uses for Tinder, but he is happily married. He's guys and girls, he's happily married. So pause off. But Ben, you've waited long enough. You've spent the time just throwing out 23 random picks. This is the one that you truly care about here. It is homer out time for you. Who are the Atlanta Braves taking to save the organization?
So who do I want them to take? 100% a college bat.
In this draft. Yeah, okay.
100% I want to see them take a college bat, and it sounds like they're looking very heavily at the bats. But the more you listen to folks, the more they're seeing Brave scouts, or the more that they talk about seeing Brave scouts at some of these high-risk pitchers. We had Sagente that we just drafted to the Orioles, Brecht, Santucci, and that would make a lot of stinking sense with their farm system and the way that they develop guys and are able to, okay, we're going to have you focus on this and this, and boom, you move up the system and you're a major league pitcher. But The guy who I have them picking here is Ryan Waldschmidt, an outfielder with the University of Kentucky. I think he's going to make somebody very, very happy. I don't think this is a guy who is a top player in the MLB or top player in MLB at any point in his career. But this just screams a Nick Markakis type to me. Very consistent player that's going to be around for a long time. It's just, that's who he reminds me a lot of. I'd love him as a pick. The other, it sounds like they're actually doing quite a bit of looking into high school bats, which would be a thing that they really haven't done early lately. So usually they like to either go with a two-way high school bat or turn him into a high school or a bat like Austin Riley or Michael Harris. Those guys were bats or considered bat and pitcher prospects that they had focus on hitting.
Murphy, the other one? Was that the most recent one?
Murphy was a guy that I think they knew they wanted him as a pitcher, but that's why he was. Well. But yeah, he was going to play. He was going to do both in college, and so that was why there was some question as to whether he was. I think he was always a better prospect as a pitcher, but it was just a question of, is this guy going to end up? He's ranked lower because he really wanted to do both, and I think it took where the Braves were willing to give him money and things, just to fit organization and things. But yeah, I think the Braves would be really happy with this fit for a long time.
Okay. Moving right along here at 25, the Padres are up. They've been trading away lots of picks to try to maintain their window of competitiveness. This might be a guy they would keep around. Who is that guy at 25, Ben?
Well, the Padres are almost guaranteed to go high school here. That's just their MO. I think it would be maybe the upset of the draft if they end up going college here, which would be really interesting. But Cash Mayfield, left-handed pitcher from Oklahoma, who has just about the most perfect Robbie Baseball build is a left-handed pitcher could have, coming out, 6'4", 200 pounds of lean, and I'm ready to add some more on type of build to him. Just really, really impressive. And he'll end up being the state's high school player of the year 2 years in a row. Has some ability as a hitter at the high school level. It's not going to translate as a pro. He is not that good of a hitter, but you're talking a left-handed pitcher here that really could. He's already got a feel for 4 pitches. So it's a matter of, he's thrown 4 pitches. It's a matter of getting to the point where he's consistently controlling 4 pitches. And that could be a really valuable guy for the Padres to keep in that rotation going forward.
Do you know if his college commit is a fairly strong one? Because I don't have, in one mock draft, he's not in the top 60. And I assume that must be because it's like, there's a legit shot he doesn't sign. And that's why this person has really suppressed him back.
Well, and where did
we can look at that for another day?
Yeah. I thought, oh, there we go. I was like, I should have that easy to pull up, but I went down Oklahoma State, which is the
okay. Yeah. So
in-state one. Well, and the big reason why that I think some people are pushing him down boards, he turned 19 in February. So he's going to be 19 and a half years old when he gets drafted, which for a lot of people, they push down a prospect because he's quote unquote old in the class. Right. I think that's going to make him, I don't know. I think he's a very valuable pick no matter where you go with him. For me, he's easily the second left-hander in this class behind Caminiti.
Okay.
So
the Yankees are up at 26. They're going to make a pick. People are going to be excited. It's going to get overhyped. I think this player lines up perfect to suit the future disappointment mold if he goes there. Yeah. Who do you have the Yankees selecting at 26?
I think in every mock I've done with them so far, I've had them picking one of 2 players, and this is one of them. Tommy White, who has played third base, likely is not a third baseman going forward, from Louisiana State, LSU. huge power. I think you're gonna find that he swing and miss. He has a lot more swing and miss at the pro level. But just a very consistent power hitter. I'm not sure. The other guy who I've had him linked to is Billy Amick, and what you hear is they might be dipping their toe into some Northeastern high school pitching, which there is a pretty decent crop of it, and they might push up one of those guys into this spot, but I can't see that right now with who's on the board for him. That if you have the opportunity for White, you have the opportunity for Amick, either one of them. Billy Amick of Tennessee is the other one who I've mocked to him a lot. Though they're just really good fits for that organization.
And as a Yankees organization, they have a strong history of trading for or just signing major league pitchers, veteran pitchers. So the idea of taking a few high school or high to develop does seem odd. But I mean, teams, they mix and match. I do have in the two other mocks, Tommy White goes at 28 to Houston in one of them, and in 30 he's going to the Rangers. So they're all right within. Like, he seems to be very set up to be back of first round. So at 27, we've got the Phillies here, Ben. And who do you think Philly wants to select based on what has occurred so far in your mock draft?
Yeah, and that's just it. I think if they had their druthers, they would like to be able to get someone like Brecht. They would like, because especially after you saw what they did with George Clausen this year, coming in with such huge stuff out of Minnesota, and they've developed him into a legit prospect. I think that they would love to have a guy like Brecht on the board. I think they would love to have Sagente here on the board to be able to do things with. But those guys aren't on the board here. And so for me, I then went to the next group, which I think they would be very happy if the top defensive catcher available, Walker Janek, is still on the board. And it may seem like an odd pick when you have arguably the best catcher, or one of the best catchers in all of baseball. But JT Realmuto is not getting any younger. And you bring up this is by far the best defensive catcher that's available this year. That also brings something with the bat. There are some guys who might be better defenders, but they don't have anywhere near the bat that Yannick has. Yannick. Anyway,
I like Yannick. I like the way you're Yannicking it. I think that's good.
Yeah, there we
Makes
go.
It all. He almost sounds like a hockey player too, like an international, like a Swede. And
he's coming over from Russia. This is Walker Yannick.
All right, so
I don't know why that went Arnold, but
I just let it go. I mean, what the hell do I care? Let's move on. Let's talk cheaters here, Ben. Who are the Astros going to bring into their system? I mean, we've seen them have lots of issues this year with arms. Do you think it's an arm? First base hasn't been solved. Might they look to get a college hitter here? I did mention before in a previous mock we had White here, but White's off the board in this one. So where do you think the Astros are going to go?
I really think that they're going to look hard at guys like White, like Billy Amick. They're going to look really hard at these guys that are heavy bat first college bats that are available. I think they would love if one of the top two catchers was still here, because that's a system depth issue they have right now is catching. But if not, they're very fine taking a pitcher that they need to work with. And Jonathan Santucci really fits a profile that they could work with. I think that's who I have them taking is Jonathan Santucci, a left-hander out of Duke. I really like his raw stuff. This is a guy who probably was the top left-handed pitcher, the top left-handed college pitcher available in the draft coming into the college season, and he has struggled with location. The raw stuff is still really stinking good. You can work this guy into a legit starter. You have a nice weapon here from the left side.
Okay. Diamondbacks are up next at 29. They also get to go again at 31. Thanks, Corbin Carroll, Rookie of the Year.
Yeah.
So
and 35. They have
And
3
they're at
picks
35.
here.
Okay.
And
That's right. That's right. They did have one. Yeah. Okay. So at 29, let's get the man off the board. Who becomes the first Diamondback of the nearly 3 straight? They get to pick.
And they have the ability to really go upside. And one of the bigger upside college bats that's going to probably go in this part of the draft is Dakota Jordan. There's a lot of issues with potential floor here. There's some big swing and miss concerns, but when he's on, this is a guy who's a power and speed plus both tools guy. Think this is, if Vance Honeycutt couldn't place or was a left fielder, that's Dakota Jordan. So there is some concern as to what does his profile end up being? Is he a 230 hitter with 20 home runs and 20 steals? If he can play a serviceable left field and do that, that's got some value. But again, to get to that, you're talking about a profile that's a lot similar to Jaron Kendall. And we all saw what that turned into coming out of Vanderbilt. A lot of hype, but he might strike out too much. Turns out the strike out too much was an issue here. So I think they're gonna have 3 picks here that could go a lot of different ways. But I would be surprised based on what's available in this draft if they didn't come out with high school players in 2 of them. So I'm taking Jordan here as an upside college potential option for him too.
All right. So in the traditional 30 pick first round, the Rangers are up last, defending World Series champs. Who falls back to the champs with the 30th pick?
And see, this is a guy I like them with the option to just kind of sit back and either go after someone like Billy Amick, who I've picked for them, third baseman with Tennessee, very consistent hitter. I think he's going to be a pro. He's going to be a major league starter, but they could also have a lot of fun and jump after a high school one of the high school shortstops. They could go after a college pitcher that they really like. I have not heard them tied with any high school pitchers at all, which is an interesting thing with where they're at in the draft. There's it's a good spot for a lot of the high school pitchers to come off. But I think Amick for them would be a really solid pick.
Yep. All right. So that's the top 30, and we'll just count back from 21 up here because that's the last time that I gave a recap. We've got Theodore Gillen going to the Twins at 21. Baltimore with my favorite pick. Now I'm going to boot it. Jurangelo Sinja. Nailed it. He's a switch pitcher. All right, guys, switch pitcher. The Dodgers taking Brendan Breck, who I did have to say, there were reports that he could throw like 103, 104, because I guess he did that on a radar in a college game this year. And then a different scouting report that I saw said that was a skewed gun on a windy day. Mm-hmm. So I think that's like, don't discount the fact that he throws 100 or triple digits, but he's not in that next kind of upper echelon of guy. Anyway, to the Braves, Ryan Walderschmidt, the Padres making cash with Cash Mayfield. The Yankees taking Tommy White, 26. The Phillies with Walker Janik, supreme defensive catcher. Houston taking Jonathan Santucci. The Diamondbacks taking Dakota Jordan, and the Rangers taking Billy Amick, third baseman from Tennessee. So we've got bonus picks here. We've got the Diamondbacks, the Orioles, the Twins, the Brewers, the Diamondbacks again, the Guardians, the Pirates. And that is the official end of the first round. So
no, Rockies and Royals still after.
Are we up to 39? Yeah. No, my apologies.
39 is where all of the
picks.
Extra stuff before second. Yeah.
All right, so we're going to do a little extra, and you guys are welcome because we are over 94 minutes in here. So, Ben, at 31, Diamondback second pick, who are they taking?
Like you said, I think they're going to go high school from this point forward. One of the biggest risers you're seeing is Ryan Sloan, right-handed pitcher, Illinois high school pitcher. He's jumping a lot up boards. It wouldn't surprise me if he goes a lot higher than this if somebody really, really likes him. But with the Diamondbacks having multiple picks, they're going to likely be able to make that sign. So that's where I have him going.
All right. The Orioles getting to go again, thanks to this wasn't Adley. Was this Adley?
This is Gunner.
Adley? Gunner. Thank you.
Gunners. Yeah. Yep. This is their rookie.
Some Oriole. Oriole.
Yeah.
But anyway, who are they taking at 32?
So because, they don't have enough middle infield depth, I thought they would take the best college shortstop. But no, in all seriousness, they're going to look at a college bat. They're going to look at a guy that could, or they're going to likely be looking at either a college bat or a high floor high school bat here, because they went with more of the risky switch pitcher earlier in this particular mock. And so Kalen Culpepper from Kansas State is who I have them picking. Really like the overall profile. It might end up moving to third. I could see him really being good in left field, right field. I don't know if he's a shortstop or a center fielder long term. But one of those steady Eddie type of guys that I think they're going to really enjoy.
And you've got the Twins earlier on here taking Theodore Gillen, a high school pick out of Texas, and they are back here on the board at 33. You see them going the college route. Who are they taking?
Well, with the high schooler, they're going to want to make sure they got the money to cover that. But they also are a team that, at least we talked about when they're at their first pick, there is a system depth issue with catching, and Malcolm Moore is sitting here as a high schooler. Malcolm Moore was a legit first round consideration, and he's been everything defensively you could hope he would be. His bat has not really developed the way you would like at Stanford. So this would be a really solid pick to very likely become the backside of a duet down the road with Jeffers. If they can develop him quickly, he would be a really good defensive side to the Jeffers offense first side.
Okay. Brewers get to take a second one here, Ben, and they get, I should say. Yeah.
Well,
they're drinking.
This is a guy. Yeah, there you go. This is a guy I really have. I like him. And so I threw him into the mock as a college hitter because I think he does a lot of things well, nothing elite. And that's Carson DiMartini, a third baseman with Virginia Tech. I think they're going to likely go for a college something here after taking Schmidt and with their first overall pick to make sure they can pay the high school arm. They're going to have to likely go for a college player here. And so I figured that would be a really nice fit for them, is to get a guy he's like I said, he's just, who he reminds me of is a Jeff Cirillo type. Just a real, does a lot of things good. Nothing that you're just like, oh my gosh, just watch him do. No, that's not his profile. So.
Okay. Diamondbacks get to make their third pick here in the first 35. And you talked high school, you talked college, and you said there was another high schooler coming. Who's that second high schooler?
It's Carter Johnson, who's a shortstop from Alabama, high school shortstop. I love his personality. He's going to be a guy that they interview draft night and everyone just falls in love with Carter Johnson. He's a really fun guy in that way. But the talent is absolutely worthy of this spot.
Yeah, in all three mocks that I've got, he is a 35, 37, 38. Like he's in this for the teams who have that extra money. They're going to find a way to get a guy like Carter Johnson in. The Guardians are back on after going 1-1 and getting Travis in the system. Who are they taking here? Going back to the tried and true Guardians method here.
And this is because it's the Guardians. That's why I went here is Drew Beam. And if you've been watching the College World Series, you've watched him really show out well for Tennessee, right-handed pitcher for Tennessee. Just the type of pitcher I could see Cleveland just getting a lot out of. and with potentially trying to make sure they can, you want to have all the money you can going into the next rounds. And certainly Cleveland is really good at finding guys in the third round, in the fourth round, that they can turn into something. Unless they have a deal that they can cut with a high school player here, I would almost guarantee that this is another college pick.
Yeah, I mean, an arm, as you said, makes a lot of sense right here. So yeah, Beam looks like a great fit. The Pirates are up at 37, and you think there's a youth movement afoot here, and that's with?
Yeah, and this is in part because of who they were able to get. I don't know that James Tibbs at their pick at ninth overall is going to require a huge amount of slot.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the more athletic players in this year's draft is Kellen Lindsey, a shortstop from Florida. And I really like what his fit could be with the Pirates.
So one of the things that Ben just said, everybody, was the guy's an athlete. So just remember that. If you hear it a lot, I think it's a problem, because a lot of the times they describe a player who needs to do a lot of different adjustments as an athlete.
Yep.
It's a thing. Anthony Alford is the reason that when I hear athlete, I think go do a deep dive on whoever you were talking about. So in this case, Kellen Lindsey, which, just to be clear for everybody, for spelling, Kellon, and then Lindsey, as you expect.
He's one of those guys. He's got some skills defensively, but he's absolutely more athlete than he is polish on the offensive side of the game.
So this is almost like the George Wolko that the White Sox took much later. Wolko was taken last year.
Yeah.
Where he was more regarded as a project, and he's done decent also.
He's really taken some fun steps forward this year. He's not going to set the world on fire yet, but he's really taken.
But he was promoted out of Complex,
Yep.
And he's now kind of in the system of Riser. So at 38, they already made one pick. At 3, they've ruined a pitcher. Do they double down on ruining a pitcher? Do they go for that corner infielder to ruin the corner infielder? Who do the Rockies take is, I guess, what I'm trying to say.
I really debated a high school pitcher here, but I thought coming out with, there you go, with 2 pitchers in a matter of, I cannot, and especially with one of them being a high schooler. If they had a college guy that they were in love with here, it would not surprise me if they went.
Yeah, they did it last year, right? Two pitchers
absolutely.
out of the gate. So,
but here we have maybe my favorite high school bat that's going to go in the second half of the draft, and that, or a first round here, and that's Slade Caldwell. He's a high school outfielder from Arkansas. If Slade Caldwell was 6'2", this guy would be easily in the argument for the top overall player coming off the board. But he is, let me pull this up here, 5'9", 180 pounds.
Right.
And like I said, nothing elite out of him. I mean, as far as his offensive tools, he is an elite runner right now. I don't know how that's going to translate. He's 18 years old. That, everyone at 18 years old is an elite runner to some degree. But he plays a legit instinctual center field. And that's something that I think would be, putting him in Coors as a really good go get it center fielder is a fun match.
Right. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. And out of high school, I mean, time to develop there. The final pick for the night for the mock draft, Ben, the Royals back on the clock. What do you think? Are they making a Royals type choice, or are they going to buck a trend?
Well, with us having them take Montgomery with their first pick, they're likely not sitting with a whole bunch of money here that they can play with on the high school side. So I figured, it'd make a lot of sense for them to double down or to go after a high school or a college arm. Good Lord, if I could talk, it'd be great. And there's a number of options here. Ryan Prager from Texas A&M has really shown well in the College World Series. Ryan Johnson's one of the best names out there from Dallas Baptist. Luke Holman, from LSU, Ben Hess from Alabama. I put on here Ryan Forcucci just because I thought it would be really fun to have that name to get to say. He's a right-hander from UC San Diego. Legit prospect, and wouldn't surprise me. He's going to go in the first 2 rounds here. Very, so just it was a good fit. Just kind of throwing a college pitcher at the wall and see what would stick, sort of thing.
Yeah, Michael Massey's somebody that I could see San Diego taking when it's our turn or my turn, whatever, to do back and forth picks with you. I mean, the more I see of certain guys, the more I can associate them with an organization that I think they might like, or that might fit that type of player. So, but there you go, everybody. That's 39 picks in a mock draft, from Ben's pen to your ears. You are welcome, everybody. So that's mock draft round 1 all the way through. And yeah, I mean, this was a long one. We had you for an hour 45 tonight. We won't keep you any longer. Ben, thank you so much. Great work from you to put this together for us. We are coming back Monday night. Join us in the live stream on the YouTube at the Palazzo Podcast channel. Obviously subscribe on there if you want to continue to help us out. And we have a Discord. You're more than welcome to join. It is free. Mike Govier has a Patreon that you can join for as little as $3 a month. You can find any of the 5 of us, I think. Is it 5 that do the podcast? 6 of us?
5, 6, something. Yeah.
It depends. We're like in the show The Boys. We're the 7.
Oh, God.
I just don't know who the 7th is.
Oh, no. That's not a comparison I want.
Oh, you didn't like season 2? I wanted to be that girl. But anyway. Depends on how much of the show you've watched, if you get what I'm saying, or not.
Yes.
And that's all fine. But anyway, thanks so much, everybody. We'll see you Monday night when we are talking A to AA players who have been promoted. Love, peace, and hair grease on behalf of myself, Ben, Mike, and the team.